I was reading the Wall Street Journal, as I like to, and I saw an article that said why you should pick Virginia, yes, Virginia, in your NCAA tournament bracket. And then Paulie comes in yesterday and goes, I got this philosophy here. I'm thinking of maybe taking Virginia, even though I know they won't win, but then I'm different than everybody else in the bracket challenge. Did you read the Wall Street Journal, Paulie?
I'm not a subscriber, though it's a fine publication. I saw it afterwards when people sent it in after my thesis.
I just thought, coincidence? Because you said you're taking Virginia. So Fritzy reached out to one of the writers, Ben Cohen, for the Wall Street Journal. Ben, what's been the reaction so far on the recent article, why you should pick Virginia to win it all?
A lot of people from Virginia thanking us for not reminding them of what happened last year, mostly.
Are they a value pick, Ben?
Totally. I mean, they are the value pick in this year's NCAA tournament. And it's because statistically, despite what happened last year and despite what happened last week in the ACC tournament, they have been the best team in college basketball all year. And in fact, they are one of the best teams in the last 2 decades of college basketball, numbers-wise. And what makes this year's, you always sort of want to look for the value strategy in your bracket, especially if you have a big pool, because if everyone picks Duke and Duke wins, the chances are you probably won't win because you have to think that you're smarter at everyone else at picking their early rounds and the other teams, and the chances are you're probably not. But if you pick Virginia and they win and nobody else picks Virginia, you have a much wider margin of error to win your pool, and so you want to look for these teams that are good and undervalued. And this year, Virginia is one of those teams. They are the best team in college basketball and generally like the 4th or the 5th most popular national champion in the big bracket pool. So there you go.
Who else is a value pick besides Virginia?
So the top 3 teams this year are Duke, UNC, and Gonzaga. Usually Gonzaga is one of those value teams because people don't like picking Gonzaga to win the national championship, but not so much this year. I think Michigan State, Kentucky, Tennessee, there are only 8 teams in the big bracket contests that have more than 1% of people picking them as the national champion. So if you want to get really crazy and pick a team like Kansas or Texas Tech or Houston, all of those teams have less than 1% of brackets picking them as the national champion. Now, you also have to think that those teams will win the national championship, and I'm not sure that's the case, but Michigan State, Kentucky, Tennessee, why not any of those teams?
If I gave you could have the number 1 seeds, or you could have the number 2 and number 3 seeds for this tournament, who would you take?
I think I would take the ones. I think that they are pretty top-heavy this year, and I'm not crazy about any of the 2s, but I don't know. What about you?
I'd probably take the 2s and 3s. There'll be a couple of 1s that get knocked off, but I agree with you. It felt like this was a top-heavy tournament. I just can't imagine if Zion Williamson wasn't in this tournament, what would the interest level be? There's always interest because of the bracket challenge, but can we quantify what it would be like if you didn't have that star power of him? Because I don't think there's anybody, any other team or any other player where you go, I got to watch him except for maybe Ja Morant.
No, I don't think so. I think that the stars of the NCAA tournament are usually the coaches. Those are the people who are around from year to year. But also, the magic of the tournament is that in an hour or 2, we'll be talking about some team, some school that you didn't even know existed until they sprang some upset. And suddenly they're the story of the tournament. No one expected to be talking about UMBC for a week last year.
Or Loyola.
Or Loyola, right? No one, you wouldn't have expected to be at that regional last year and to be rooting for a 98-year-old nun, right? And that's what the tournament always does.
Do you have any other tips with 20 minutes to go before tip-off for people just finishing up their bracket?
Don't pick Duke.
Oh, don't. How far does Duke go?
It almost doesn't even matter.
Oh, okay.
I think that the smartest thing to do is to pick them to go pretty far because they are really good. But, somewhere between 37 and 50% of brackets in the big competitions, the Yahoo, the ESPN, the CBS ones, are picking Duke to win the national championship. Now, part of that is because Zion is amazing, but it's kind of amazing because there has never been a clearer strategic incentive to hate Duke, and yet people are not really taking it.
I know. It's people are just for this year only liking Duke, and then they'll go back to hating Duke next year.
Well, for sure. And but you want to actually put your money where your heart has always been, right? And I went to Duke. I mean, Andrew and I, who wrote this story for the Journal about why it's never been smarter to hate Duke, we're both Duke alumni. However, what you want to win your office pool is you want to pick Duke to get to the Final Four or the national championship, so you get 5 or 6 more games of Zion before the Knicks ruin him forever. And then you want to bet against Duke, because if Duke does lose and you're the one person smart enough to bet against Duke, you're probably winning a whole lot of money.
Thank you, Ben. Enjoy the tournament. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Dan.
That's Ben Cohen. He wrote the article, Why You Should Pick Virginia Against Virginia in Your NCAA Tournament Bracket.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.